Does anyone remember the 360 Kinect? Remember the whole 2 games you played on it that were bundled with the console, and then you never bought any other game for it because it all looked like dog shit?
After the role of a lifetime, I've been busy. Xbox on. So, I look forward to my downtime. Xbox, go to Titanfall.
Well, I do. Yeah, Kinect Adventures and Kinectimals. They were pretty enjoyable as a kid, I'll admit. But at the end of the day, they were just repetitive mini-game collections that wore out their novelty pretty quickly.
Man, they best rename that shit to Galo.
I mean, it's the Kinect. You don't expect deep narratives or compelling gameplay. But you just look at the other games on this thing and they were all just glorified tech demos with some highly recognizable IP slapped onto it. You could tell it was all low effort, and the only selling point was that you could play out key scenes and set pieces, all while waving your arms around like an idiot while the damn thing struggled to read your inputs half the time. Just look at Star Wars for Kinect. Ah, good old Star Wars for Kinect. Features 4 game modes: Jedi Destiny, the primary game mode, Pod Racing, Rancor Rampage, and Galactic Dance Off. Oh boy. Yeah, who could forget the Just Dance game mode with Han Solo? Reminder that 1313 died for this. In fact, this was the last game released by LucasArts before Disney dissolved the studio. You might as well have just made Bop It Star Wars Edition. It's just Bop It, except it plays obnoxious sound effects from the movies. You just pull on R2-D2's blue metallic penis and you hear him scream. Feeling immersed yet? It's about as shallow and shameless of a cash grab as you can get. And that's basically what you get with the Kinect. And I can't even imagine how much worse the input reads were on the games that weren't developed by Microsoft in-house. But there was one game on the Kinect that I was excited to get my hands on: Dragon Ball Z for Kinect. I loved DBZ as a kid, and I would watch it on Nicktoons back in like 2012. This was when they were airing Kai for the first time, and I still remember the bumpers, and there was one time where they marathoned all the movies. That was awesome. Although they never got around to the Boo Saga until a few years later when they aired it as the final chapters on Toonami. I actually didn't see the Boo Saga until my recent rewatch of DBZ earlier this year. It was the original Funimation dub with all the filler, and I listened to it with the Faulkner score. I was surprised they called Hercule Mr. Satan because they always called him Hercule in the video games, so I thought the anime would have had this same censorship. Those kinds of things were more strict on video games than TV shows, I guess. The video games are actually where most of my exposure to the series comes from. I played a good handful of DBZ games, mainly the GOATs, Budokai 3 and Tenkaichi 3 on PS2. I even played that dogshit Dragon Ball Sagas. Honestly, the games always made the action look way more explosive and over the top compared to the anime, so it's no wonder they're what I remember the series by the most. The presentation was always amazing, the music, the stylish menus, the voice acting, it was all so good. So you can imagine how excited I was as a kid to finally be able to put myself in DBZ and shoot Kamehamehas. I actually still have my copy of DBZ Kinect. It was one of the early copies that came with the Burger King crown as shown on the cover for the game. It's actually not a Burger King crown, but it's like a paper hat that you can wear that looks like Goku's Super Saiyan hair. Unfortunately, I don't have mine anymore. I would have loved to show it off and do a bit with it where I say something like, "Get that Saiyan monkey off the plane!" The 7th generation DBZ games get a bad rap just because they could never live up to the expectations of the Budokai and Tenkaichi games. But there are some gems out there like Raging Blast and Origins if you want to include handhelds. And I have fond memories of playing Burst Limit on my 360, and sure, the content and game modes might be lacking in these games. I mean, Burst Limit doesn't even cover the Boo Saga, but it's a pretty solid fighting game in its own right, with pretty nice graphics you expect out of a next generation DBZ game. So does DBZ Kinect stand among these gems? Well, you just heard my thoughts about the Kinect, so obviously the answer is no. This game is nothing more than an exercise game with a Dragon Ball skin, and much like the other games for the Kinect, it's just simple stages with set pieces and key moments where you occasionally get to mime out the character's signature moves and watch them happen on screen. There aren't even other game modes. There's no free roam story mode like Dragon Universe where you get to fly around the world, no martial arts tournament, no unlockable abilities or shops. You just choose a stage from the menu and play out a fight from the various sagas. And then when you beat the stage, you can replay it as a different character. That's literally the closest you get to custom fights. No stage selection, no ability customization. You can't even change your default opponent from the selected stage, meaning that the characters you unlock who don't appear in the stages, you can't fight against at all. So you start out with Goku versus Raditz, and you quickly see there isn't much to the actual fighting. You literally just punch your opponent to fill up this bar to initiate a quick time event to do damage.
Do you have a new attack you've been saving for a time like this?
Well, not really.
And then you just sit there and watch your characters brawl with a flashy animation. And then you keep doing it again and again and again. That's it. That's the whole game. You can do other attacks like uppercuts and hooks, but it's much faster to just punch straight ahead of you like a spastic retard. You can also do kicks, but again, there's no incentive to do these over just punching. The game says kicks have more range, but I forgot to actually check. So anyway, you just keep punching and filling up that bar and watching these same attack animations until you or your opponent decides to do what the game calls an escape attack. This puts you and your opponent at a distance and changes the combat slightly so that you just throw ki blasts instead of punches now. This battle phase is so much more brain dead than the close-up combat, but way more effective and easy to exploit. The strategy here is just to charge up ki to use your special moves while your opponent just shoots ki blasts at you. They don't do any knockback to you, so there's no point in dodging them. But you can lean your body left or right to move accordingly. You can't fly up or down or anything, and the only way your opponent could get close to you again is if one of you does another escape attack, which would be called an approach attack if you're using it to switch from long range back to close-up combat. There's no reason to stay in close-up combat because you won't be able to charge your ki or use your moves as easily, which literally take out like a third of your opponent's health and are the only real way to do damage in this game. So every fight just evolves into you immediately running away as soon as the game gives you the prompt to do an escape attack, then camping the enemy with your special moves until their AI gets tired of shooting ki blasts at you and switches the fight back to mindless punching. And you just keep going back and forth between these two battle phases. The enemy doesn't really do anything regardless. Like here, I'm just guarding to see if Raditz will do something, and he just sits there taunting with the same voice line playing over and over again. You can do some quick time events in between, of which there are only 2. You have the one that has you punch in the air like a retard to fill up a bar while the two characters fly around punching each other in good old DBZ fashion. Then there's this other one, which is basically a game of Simon Says, where you do one of the motions shown on the screen in a short window of time. At first I thought some of them were marked out because I was too close to the Kinect for it to allow me to do these motions, but no, they're marked out because those are the moves your opponent expects you to do and will punish with a counterattack if you do them. So why the fuck would I ever choose the move that I know will get countered? Doesn't that defeat the whole purpose? It's like the rock paper scissors minigames from Budokai 3, only shittier. The quick time events are just super annoying, and each sequence has you do them like 3 times in a row, so it drags out the fight so much. Especially the punching one, which it makes you do every time you punch your opponent more than 5 times. Yeah, you fill up a bar so you can do a mini game, where you fill up more bars by punching the air for 20 seconds. And after that, you only deal like 3,000 damage. It's just another reason to avoid fighting up close, because this quick time in particular drags fights out for so long. At least the Simon Says is just a one and done. It's not like you have to hold a pose for 10 seconds every time. So you may have noticed from the footage that this game looks very similar to Ultimate Tenkaichi. And that's because it's literally the same fucking game but retooled to have first-person motion controlled gameplay. The models, soundtrack, and sound effects are all ripped straight from Ultimate Tenkaichi. Even the cutscenes are reused. The worst part is the gameplay mechanics are identical too, just slightly modified to accommodate the motion controls. I actually can't believe how fucking lazy this piece of shit game is. I mean, I cannot believe gameplay this bad and bare bones wasn't just made for a shitty Kinect game, but was used in a real video game with standard controls. I'm not exaggerating, Ultimate Tenkaichi has the exact same gameplay loop as this one. 2-stage distant-based combat, overly long attack sequences, and a quick time event for every action you perform. And Ultimate Tenkaichi came first! That means the tedium that makes this game super annoying and repetitive to play wasn't just fluff made to pad out a game due to limitations with the Kinect. No, it was always supposed to be shit. The blueprint it was based on was shit, and they had the gall to give it the Tenkaichi moniker. I guess now would be a good time to talk about the tracking in this game, which it's the Kinect, so of course it's not very good. It goes without saying, but I can show you some of the frustration I had executing moves in this game. First of all, the block was very inconsistent and would constantly drop for no reason, which the block is useless anyway, but you know, maybe I want to at least pretend and play the game as if it has some strategy. Even though mindlessly punching your opponent will always be more optimal. Seriously, I'm not moving at all here, and I keep dropping the guard and getting hit. And here I'm just trying to use my Kaioken attack, and the game registers it as me kicking for some reason. And playing as characters who had the Kamehameha was annoying, because for some reason, anytime I would do anything like dodge or charge up a strong punch, it would do it, and then the Kinect would immediately read me doing the Kamehameha motion for some reason, which just makes your character sit in place and charge ki if you don't have enough to do the move. So I would do something and then get stuck in the charging animation for a second, which made inputs feel even more laggy and inconsistent. I did readjust my Kinect at some point, which alleviated these issues for the most part, but it still wasn't perfect, and sometimes it would just lose track of me entirely and I would have to spend 3 minutes trying to get it to find me again. It's just these little annoyances that aren't too bad at first but persist and make this game unfun to play, because they break up the flow of the gameplay enough for it to really get on your nerves after a while and sour the whole experience. And you know what's worse? These little cutscenes that play throughout the stages. It feels like as soon as the fight gets going, the game stops to play a cutscene or a scripted event. This was especially apparent in the early levels. The Vegeta fight has like 4 cutscenes. There's a lot less of them by the Buu saga. Okay, so I beat Vegeta, and now the iconic scene of Goku's Kaioken Kamehameha versus the Gallic Gun. This should be cool. I get to do a Beam Clash QuickTime event, right? Oh no, it's just a cutscene. The one time a forced QuickTime event actually would have been justified by letting you play out one of the most iconic scenes in all of Dragon Ball. And right after that you play the Grade 8 Vegeta stage, which is nothing but a series of QuickTime events. And if you thought the unreliable motion tracking was bad before, it really shows here. It's not even that long, but you can only mess up 4 times before having to restart the stage and watch the same sequences play over again. You really gotta learn to time your moves and do them like a second or 2 in advance, which I get it, but it's still so fucking tedious having to sit through the same sequences and dialogue when you restart that you just want to rush through it and get it over with. You can skip cutscenes by holding your hand out at the top right corner, but of course it takes the Kinect 5 seconds to register your hand, and then you have to hold it there for 5 more seconds for the ring to appear around the icon. By the time you do all that, the cutscene's over. You might as well not even bother. The Grade 8 Vegeta stage is the only one in the game that's like this, by the way. There's no other level that does something different like this one. The developers probably couldn't think of anything else they could do as a gimmick level, which was honestly for the best because that shit sucked. Probably another level ripped from Ultimate Tenkaichi as well. I think they also realized how stale the gameplay got after a while because they absolutely gutted the Android saga. So the first stage is Vegeta versus Android 19, and then the next stage right after that is Piccolo versus Cell. Alright, that's a bit of a jump, don't you think? Really, there's no fight against Jiro or 18? Not even a Trunks level where you get to fight Mecha Frieza? I mean, he's in the game as an unlockable character, but you don't play as him at all in the story. There's also not a single Gohan level until the fight with Perfect Cell. It's actually kind of crazy how many characters are just relegated to unlockables and don't actually appear in the story despite having pretty important moments in the anime. I'll get into that more later in the video. The voice lines for Gohan and Frieza also threw me off because they constantly switch between their original voice and their Kai voice for some reason.
I thought I already told you. No mercy! It was my fault that you gave up your life.
Again, this is also true for Ultimate Tenkaichi from what I've seen. I don't think there was a single original line of dialogue recorded for this game. This game is 95% asset flips. Towards the later parts of the game, you'll notice your opponent starts fights with more health than you. Their AI is also better too, and their attacks break your guard much easier. I wouldn't even say the fights get more challenging, just more tedious because now the enemy throws more shit at you that forces you to do more quick time events. Like here my guard got broken, so now I have to hold the pose shown on the screen to fill up a bar while my opponent wails on me for 30 seconds. Come on, so close. Fuck. And my punches don't even stun them, so I hardly ever get to fill up my own bar in these fights. They would either just attack through my punches because of no stun or just block them. And as soon as I tried to use a charged punch to get through their block, they would just run away like a bitch. By the time I got to the Buu saga, I said fuck this and decided to just switch to ranged combat as soon as I got the chance, because the close-up sections became so insufferable they weren't worth playing. But now even using your special moves has an extra layer of bullshit. You may have seen in the footage before how when an enemy used their special moves, it gave me the option to dodge or counter it with a QuickTime event to reduce the damage I take. Well, to do the counterattack, you need to have enough ki to expend and do the corresponding motion, and this puts you in a beam clash or a flurry of punches. So you have to do that other QuickTime event where you punch at the screen for half a minute. So in the later levels, the enemy will almost always have enough ki to counter your moves and will make you do the QuickTime event before letting your attack go through, just to make you go through an extra layer of tedium for your damage. Like this only happened maybe a total of 3 times until I got to the Buu saga, and then all of a sudden every time I used a move they would counter it and make me do that annoying punching QuickTime event. And like I said, there aren't any more gimmick stages that change the gameplay fundamentally. The whole game really is just 50% punching in the air, 40% QuickTime events, and 10% doing poses to do signature moves from the show. The gameplay is the same throughout every saga you play, and it gets old real quick. Like I said before, the only unlockables you get from the story mode are playable characters you can use when replaying stages. That's the only alternate game mode this game has, and again, it's very bare bones with no customization at all. In terms of other side content, there's a QR code reader that uses the Kinect's camera and a QR code included alongside the Burger King crown to unlock stuff. According to the internet, these include playable characters, which I'm pretty sure literally all of these are unlockable in the base game anyway, and power-ups, which actually does sound kind of interesting. From the main menu, you can also watch the episode Bardock Special Movie. You don't even have to unlock it, it's just there in the menu. You've probably seen Super Saiyan Bardock in the Xenoverse games, but this is actually where it came from. And it's the first time we actually got this movie outside of Japan. It's not dubbed though, which is kind of a bummer. It's only 20 minutes long anyway, and the story isn't even good. Bardock gets sent back in time after being hit with Frieza's death ball, and he has to fight Frieza's ancestor who he kills by going Super Saiyan, making him the very same Super Saiyan the Saiyans would talk about in Legend. Now I know I said this game sucks, and it does, but I did replay a few stages with some of the unlockable characters, and to the game's credit, they did put actual effort into the roster. Despite many characters not appearing in the story like Android 16 and 18, Gotenks, and the Ginyu Force, they're all here and each has their own moves with unique inputs and animations. Doing the signature moves is by far the most fun aspect of this game, simply for the immersion factor. Where every other part of the gameplay is simple punches and quick time events, actually doing the moves exactly like they do in the show feels very satisfying and is probably the one thing that makes you feel like you're in a DBZ fight. It's actually surprising how much it adds to the experience to watch different animations for every move, even if the inputs to initiate them are pretty repetitive. It actually made me want to play as all the different characters to see their sequences and animations for the special moves. There are even unique interactions between characters at the start of the stage, depending on who you play as. And honestly, the presentation in this game isn't bad either. I mean, yeah, the cutscenes look incredibly cheap, but in terms of gameplay, the environmental damage and scale of your attacks are what you would expect from a 7th gen DBZ game. Even if it is just through QuickTime events. That's the issue with cinematic gameplay. You can't do it without taking control away from the player. Burst Limit had this issue too with its drama pieces, and this game makes it even worse because instead of making you watch a sequence play out, you do these shitty mini-games too in between. Unfortunately, for as much as I can admire the effort that went into the unlockable characters, my low attention span can't tolerate this character selection menu. Just look at this shit. You're just painstakingly using your arm as a cursor to move through different pages of characters. You have to go through a whole page of Gokus just to get to the character you want. Yes, that's right, each transformation is its own separate character. Literally the cardinal sin of DBZ games. This menu is so awful, dude. I couldn't be bothered to do more than 3 levels. So yeah, this game is nothing more than a cheap novelty that isn't much to look at, and what you do get is shallow and loses its novelty very fast. Actually, it's even worse than that. It might be one of the laziest video game releases I've ever seen. It's just an asset flip of an already existing game that released a year before, and it was thoughtfully molded to fit a different gameplay style with as little effort possible to accommodate the Kinect's motion controls. It's basically like one of those shitty Wii ports that played like liquid shit, and then you find out about the Xbox 360 equivalent that doesn't have shit gimmick controls. DBZ for Kinect is probably the worst offender of this, and the most unnecessary and mishandled port ever. I genuinely don't know what decisions could have led to this game existing. Laziest Kinect game, laziest Dragon Ball game.